Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. You've reached The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman on KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220. Happy Friday morning to you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Got a good show today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have a special guest in studio, a client we're currently working with named Laronda. And we're going to tell you her story and kind of what we're doing with it and how we're doing with it. And she can tell you her story. And so she's a pretty good exemplar of the sort of stuff that we do to keep people out of foreclosure and the kind of stuff we can do and the kind of stuff you can do to stay out of foreclosure. And it's I think, a good lesson there. So we're going to talk all about her story. And I got some stuff. Title rep that we hear from sometimes, a fella from WF Title named, one moment here, Robert Toffel. I got to say thank you to him. He sends out these emails every so often, and they have really interesting data in them. And I don't know, it just sent me down a rabbit hole earlier this week of just data points. And I thought I'd share some of this with you because some of it, I'm a data guy, and I know what I'm talking about most of the time. At least I try to. And I was very surprised at some of the stuff that I turned up in my little data search. So we're going to go over that stuff in a minute. But first, it's a little personal thing for me. My mother's birthday is today. Today is Mom's birthday. And Mom is turning 77 years old today. So happy birthday, Mom. The irony is she's probably not listening, even though she's my mother. But if you are listening, happy birthday. If not, you can hear it in the playback. But happy birthday, Mom. Just wanted a little shout out to you there for you. Because, 77. Honestly, no one thought you were going to make 77. So it's kind of amazing that you have. It has nothing to do with her health or anything. It's just my mother's slightly insane. And everyone who knows her knows that.
Okay. She's
a lot of fun. She's great grandmother. As a grandmother, loads of fun. As a mother, well, she was a great mom, but little,
It must be the Leo, and I don't necessarily buy into the whole, star signs and all that, but my daughter's birthday is tomorrow. And she's also nutty. So.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, a lot of fun to watch, though. Never a dull moment. Never
from the sidelines, yeah. Happy birthday to your mom.
Happy birthday, Mom. And a great mom. My mom's wonderful. She's just, somewhat insane. And I mean that in the nicest way. My sister would tell you the same. Anyway, happy birthday, Mom. All right, back to the show. So let's go over some of this stuff because I was stunned by some of this stuff, and I think you guys will be too. And it really is kind of indicative of where we're at right now. Prices are going down. The market is softening. Interest rates are still high because of all kinds of instability that we're getting out of the White House. The trade nonsense, the trade tariff nonsense. It's keeping interest rates high, which is keeping things depressed. And the bottom line is, between January of this year and right now in the Santa Clarita Valley, we've lost about 1.6, 1.7% of the average home's value. And that's going to continue to slide. It's going to continue to go down to the end of the year. We'll probably lose 2 to 3%. I don't think it'll be more than 3% by year's end. And whether that slide continues across 2026 or not, will really depend on the interest rate. I mean, so much of the real estate market is dependent on the interest rate. So remember I said that as we go through these numbers because they are stunning. Nationwide, home sales in 2024, this is last year, were the weakest since 1995. Well, okay, that's a shocking statistic to begin with, but this part is the amazing part. Despite adding an additional 70 million people to the United States in the same time period. So the population went up 70,000 people, but yet the real estate that was sold in 2024 was the worst it's been since 1995. That is a sobering number. Let's talk about some stuff just in California. California is home to 6 of the top real estate markets in the United States. Pretty wealthy state. 40% of California homeowners are considering a move out of state currently. And by the way, this data all comes from a combination of the OC Register, CoreLogic, DQ News, Redfin, Realtor.com, and the National Association of Realtors. So right, in a recent survey, 9% of Californians are considering relocating elsewhere in the state. 40% are planning on leaving the state. Everybody plans. I don't think we're going to see that massive flight from California, but that's what the polls tell us. United States homeownership is 65.5% on average. In California, homeownership is 54.8% on average. We are the third worst in the United States, behind only New York and Hawaii. So we're number 3. Unbelievably, only 22.8% of California homes are paid off. That is the lowest in the country. We have more houses under mortgage in California than any other state in the country. Only 22.8% of all California houses are paid off. Contrast that with the rest of the United States. 37% of all U.S. homes have no mortgage. Of the remaining 63%, 1 in 4 have over 50% equity. That's the rest of the country. We have mortgages that are up to our eyeballs here because it's California. There are 14 million residences in California, total of 14 million. Of those, 7.5, slightly more than half, 7.5 million are single-family homes. So we have mostly homes. It's about a 50-50 split, but slightly less, about 60-40, I guess. California is home to 15 of the top 25 most expensive cities to live in. California has 70% of the highest price zip codes in the nation. For 20% of California households, 50% of their paycheck goes to housing. I mean, 50%, that's crazy. But yeah, we all know that. Renting in California buying a home in LA or Orange County currently costs 10 times more than the typical family earns in a year in the United States. Let that sink in for a minute. In Los Angeles and Orange County, to buy an average home, it's going to cost you 10 times more than the typical family earns in a year. That makes sense. I mean, in our area, the average sales price is right about $900,000. So if you're making $90,000 a year, you're not living here. But yeah, 10 times more than the average person makes in the country. I think it's actually higher than that. Anyway, renting in California costs $2.96 a square foot on average, the fifth highest in the nation. And when you look at just Los Angeles, when you ignore a lot of the more rural parts of the state, that number actually goes up to the second most expensive in the country. So fifth largest overall, second if you look at the cities, Los Angeles in particular. 65% of Americans making $60,000 a year are currently facing financial hardship. $65,000 a year is not enough in most places. Certainly not enough in Southern California, but it's not enough in most places to be able to live. I don't mean live comfortably. I just mean live. 25% of Americans making $150,000 a year, largely in places like California, are facing financial hardship. Californians are skipping bills at the highest level since 2021. And I always save the best for last. Right now, would require an income of, with the interest rate where it is, when the average prices are where they are, you would require an income of $350,000 a year to buy a median-priced house in Los Angeles County. That's as of middle of last year, and it's gotten worse since then. The affordability curve is upside down in our area. It just is. The prices are too high and the interest rates are too high. Something's got to give. It's basic supply and demand. I've been talking about this for the last, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. Prices have to come down, and they have to come down a lot more than the 3 to 4% we're going to see this year. Maybe we hit 5%. Prices need to come down. Now, I'm a homeowner. I have a couple of them, so I don't want to see prices come down, but we just need to for the health of the greater economy. And that slide that we're on is going to continue as far as housing market being weaker. And the reason for that is simple. We have more stuff coming to market. In California, we have 40% more listings that are available right now than were on the market 90 days ago. 40% increase in inventory statewide in just the last 90 days. So if you're a buyer, you got a lot more options. Not only that, the interest rates is very high, and we know it's starting to weaken. So we know the interest rate's going to come down. So if you're a buyer, waiting to find that perfect house is something you can afford to do. Sellers can't. If you're a seller right now, you better get that house on the market now, because it's only going to get worse as time goes on. And you better price it aggressively, otherwise it's not going to sell. As I keep saying, your house has to be a deal to get sold in this market. That has been true for the last year almost. It's becoming more and more acute because buyers have more options. It used to be there'd be one house on the block that was for sale. Now there are 2 or 3 or 4 houses on that block that are for sale. And that's just the nature of the business. So if you got a house to sell, you best do it now, and you better be a deal. You need to get under the market, you need to get ahead of it, not behind it. And if you're a buyer, if you can't find the perfect house, you might want to wait. I mean, that's just the reality. I think you're better off looking and grabbing something, but you might want to wait. Let's talk interest rates, because that's what's driving the market. Okay, interest rates. Here's some just current facts about interest rates. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage, easy for me to say, 30-year fixed rate mortgage is now 6.74%, which is down 1 basis point from last week, which is not a lot. But it is better than the 6.97% we've been looking at most of the year. So at least it's relaxed a little. But that curve, as far as the prices continuing to soften and drop, is not going to flatten out unless or until we get under 6.5%, hopefully down to 6%. We really need 5.5% on the interest rate for the market to normalize. And until we reach that point, it's going to be problematic for sellers and buyers in general. So the 15-year fixed rate mortgage is down to 5.87%, down 5 basis points from last week, which is interesting. That means more people are buying into the 15-year mortgage, which is good. I think 15-year mortgages are better than 30 years anyway. You build equity a lot quicker. Average home payment right now in California, the average home payment in California right now is $6,271 a month. How many of you guys out there listening can honestly afford a mortgage payment? And that's not counting taxes and interest. That's just mortgage. That's just payment interest. I'm sorry, it's not counting taxes and insurance. Sorry, that is mortgage interest. $6,271 a month is the average. Shocking. 88.5% of all U.S. homeowners have an interest rate below 6%. That's why they're not selling. 78.7% of all U.S. homeowners have an interest rate below 5%. 59.4% of all U.S. homeowners have an interest rate below 4%. So more than half of homeowners in the United States have an interest rate below 4%. That's why those houses aren't coming to market. There's a lot of stuff coming to market. We're still nowhere near normal. And this is the big one, 22.6% of U.S. homeowners have an interest rate below 3%. And if you're like me and you're lucky enough to be in that sub-3 mortgage class, you're not selling that house. You'd be crazy to sell that house. I'll use myself as an example. If I were to sell my house and buy the exact same house with the exact same loan amount, in other words, the only thing that would change would be my current interest rate versus what I can get in the market right now, my payment would nearly triple. I'm not doing that. My neighbors aren't doing that either. You'd be crazy to do that. So that's what we call the lock-in effect. And that's why some of the better houses, I shouldn't say better, but some of the houses aren't coming to market, yet a lot of the others are. It's a very weird time in real estate. 2024 conforming FHA loan limit was $766,550 in LA, San Diego, and Orange County, because they're all expensive counties. I think it's the highest FHA goes. And the conforming loan limit for the Inland Empire was $644,000. And that just has to do with how much FHA and VA is willing to loan you if you're in those various areas. So, and a lot of people are buying FHA. I like FHA a lot because 3.5% down. It's the easiest way for most people to get into the house. Also, they allow a little bit larger ratios and things like that. So what has all this led to? Well, it's led to in 2025, the average homeowner used to sell in 2025, the average homeowner will sell in 13.4 years is what we're projecting. In 2020, the average homeowner sold every 11.8 years. And it's the interest rate that's doing that. It's the high interest rate that's keeping people in their houses. It's the high interest rate that's keeping people from buying. It has to come down. Otherwise, this is going to persist. In 2020, the average homeowner sold every 11.8 years. Now it's 13.4. And you're going to see that keep getting longer. In 2025, the average first-time home buyer will likely relist. They'll buy a house if you are one of the few first, and I do mean few. We're going to get to that in a minute. If you're one of the few first-time home buyers and you go to sell a house, you're typically going to take 5 to 7 years before you do that. In 2010, the average first-time home buyer resold every 2 to 5 years. Now it's 5 to 7. Even first-time buyers, you can find are out there longer. The median age for the first-time home buyer in 1991 was 28 years old. Want to hazard a guess as to what it is now? Yeah. As of now, the average first-time home buyer's age, 38 years old. We tacked on 10 extra years, which means 10 years fewer years to build equity, which means that's the people who are buying now are going to have at 38 instead of 28, are going to have a harder time retiring. Median age for a repeat home buyer in 1991, meaning it's your first resale, you're selling a house and buying a house, was 42. That age now, 61. So people are buying that first-time house, hanging in it longer, and on average, are not selling it till they get to be 61 years old. You can't have a market that works like that. We've gutted the first-time buyer market with the current circumstance. That's okay. In 2010, and this is the big number, in 2010, 50% of homes sold in California, half of them, were bought by first-time home buyers. Now, in 2025, 24% of homes sold in California were bought by first-time home buyers. So again, 2010, only 15 years ago, 50% of all home buyers in California were first-time home buyers. Now, that number has shrunk to 24%. And that is a combination of high prices and, more importantly, high interest rates. I think we can stomach the prices if the interest rates are better, but we can't have both. You can't have a situation where prices are going up and interest rates are going up. It will not hold. And what happens is both collapse. And that's what's happening now. The prices are starting to go down. The interest rate hasn't really gone down much. It's gone down a little bit. It's gone down about 1/4 of a point over the year. And it's got to go down a lot more. So yeah, I remember when I first got into real estate in the early 90s, God, the first couple of years I was doing it probably had a lot to do with my age. I was 19, but almost all of them were first-time home buyers. I had a slew of first-time home buyers. I was kind of a specialist at the time for first-time home buyers. And now there's almost nothing there. Let's talk about real estate agencies. This one I thought was interesting just for realtors, and we'll go to break. Real estate agents. 81% of National Association, according to National Association of Realtors, 81% of agents say staging a home adds 1 to 5% increase in the home value. No, it doesn't. That may be true if your house is, a multi-million-dollar house, and if it's, $2, $3 million area maybe. But otherwise, no, it doesn't. Nothing against the home stagers out there. I know some good ones. They can help, but 1 to 5% is optimistic. 74% of all agents nationwide did not sell a home in 2024. To my realtor friends who are starving now, because all of us are hurting because there's such little volume, 74%. It's almost, it's basically, the vast majority of agents did not sell a single home in 2024. 74% of full-time realtors made no money, not a single sale, not a single commission in 2024. That's a nationwide number, but I was shocked by that. 2% of all agents nationwide sold between 11 and 20 homes in 2024, which is still an incredibly low number for the top 2%. Only 0.14%, not even close to a full percentage point, 0.14%, according to the National Association of Realtors, of all agents nationwide sold more than 45 homes in 2024. I'm not surprised by that because I do it, but it's still a staggering statistic. The top 1% of all agents do 17% of the business. Well, that's true. The top 50% of all agents do 91% of the business. So if you're looking to hire a realtor, or if you are a realtor, and you're not at least in the top 50%, you're surviving on 8% or 9% of the real estate business, which is crazy. The top 50% of agents do 91% of the business, and that's been true for quite some time. And I'm very lucky that for all of my career, I've been in that top 50%. Part of my year was in the top, part of my real estate career was in the top 2%. But then I started doing a lot of pro bono stuff more seriously. But anyway, I'm very lucky in that my little office, falls into that category where we did, between, 11 and 20 homes. So we're in that top 2% nationwide this year. But and that's great, but, that still doesn't keep the lights on. But it's nice to know. So, so if the lessons from here, the market is continuing to soften. That's what you can draw from all of this data. People are keeping their houses longer, but yet there's still inventory coming to the market because a lot of people are being forced to sell it or choosing to now because it is the new normal. And the interest rates are too high, and so are the prices. Prices are coming down, and so is the interest rate. And if we're very, very lucky, it won't go down much more. Now, I don't think this is going to be 2008. It's not going to be a crash. It's going to feel like that because prices have been going up for the last 10 years solid. They've been going down for the last 6 months. And really only acutely in the last 3 months. I'm going to leave you with one last little statistic, then we'll go to break. Same fella from WFG Title turned out a chart that I got a hold of, which I just think is fascinating. This charts average U.S. housing prices from 1950 to 2024. So this is the average of U.S. housing prices and whether it's gone up or down. In the United States, since 1950, 74 years, we've only had 7 years in which the average sales price for a single-family home in the United States has gone down. 1990 and 91, remember those years, and of course 2007, 8, 9, and 10. That's it. Those are the only years where real estate, on average, in the United States has gone down. Now, it's a very local thing. Sometimes they'll go, like right now, prices are going down in California. They're not in other places. Places like Chicago, the market's holding strong for the moment. It's going to curve too. They all will because of the interest rate. But yeah, only 7 years out of the last 74 where prices have gone down. So despite what we're looking at right now, despite the dangers, the difficulties, despite the inflated prices, despite the inflated interest rate, housing is still a good bet. Housing is still an excellent investment, despite all the other troubles. And if we can get through those, it becomes an even better investment. But I think the biggest problem is that we have absolutely shelled the current market conditions have just destroyed the first-time home buyer market, just killed us. And that's got to come back. It just does. The state's going to have to get involved. The Fed's going to have to get involved. We're going to have to start offering incentives to first-time buyers. We need to get first-time buyers back in the market. We've lost over half of them in the last couple of years. We've got to change that. And until that changes, which means the interest rate goes down and the prices go down a bit, we will not have a healthy real estate market. That's just where we're at. So I tell you what, let's go to break. We'll hear from some of the advertisers when we get back. We're going to have Laronda in. We're going to talk all about her story and kind of where she's at, what we've been able to do for her. And she's not quite at the end yet, not quite finished, but we're close. And I want you guys to hear her story, and I want her to be able to tell her story because it's a really good story, and you're going to want to hear it. So please listen to the break. When we're back in, we'll have Laronda, and we'll go through all of her stuff. Thank you for listening. Hey, everybody. Thank you guys for listening to the break. I'm your host, Rich Szerman. You've reached the Real Estate Fix on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening to the break. Hey, we have a special guest in studio. We have Laronda Warner in. She's a client, and we're doing some foreclosure defense stuff for her. And I usually bring people in when they're kind of at the either beginning of their story and we've reached a roadblock, or at the end of their story and we're taking a victory lap. Laronda's not quite at the end of her story, but as far as I don't want to say your story, but a longer life to live than that. Her real estate story, let's adjust, her foreclosure defense story, more importantly. And I find Laronda's story very, very compelling. I think you guys will too, both how she got into this mess to begin with. I'll start with Laronda's a homeowner in Southern California. Well, first of all, welcome in. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We were just talking a second ago because I was going through all those numbers. You said, how old were you when you bought your first house?
56.
You don't look like you're 56 now, but you bought your first house when you were 56 years old.
56, yes.
Thank you for buying your first house. Although, like we talked about, you're goofing up the curve. We should have gotten you in earlier. I wish I'd met you earlier. But I want you guys to kind of hear Laronda's story because I think there are a lot of people. Well, her story is specific to her. I think there are a lot of people who fall into the same sort of general category. And I think it's a lot you guys can kind of get out of Laronda's story. So let's start at the beginning. So you bought this house. How long have you been in the house?
I've been in there 2.5 years.
Okay,
I bought it in November the 4th of 2022.
Okay, so you've been there about 3 years.
Yes.
And well, just I know the story, but I want you to tell it. So how did you wind up getting behind? How did you wind up missing mortgage payments?
Well, I've been a business owner. I have my own company for the last decade, and in the process of changing companies, I was told that the process would only take a short period of time.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, tell them what you do.
Okay, I'm sorry. I do transportation for the elderly and disabled.
Mostly for the VA. Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
as
So,
well.
so in other words, if somebody can't get to because they don't have transportation, or maybe they're
Correct.
not able to operate a vehicle,
Correct.
or their bus doesn't go by their house, because as we
Correct.
know, public transportation in Los Angeles and the area surrounding Los Angeles is not wonderful. It's not. I mean, not to put down our own bus system. It's great. It's at least we have one.
Yes.
But it's not as full service as it would need to be to handle some of these men and women, some of their needs. And so you contract with the VA, among others, and then correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, and then you get the call to go out and pick up, a patient,
Yes.
client,
Yes.
and then you take them to their medical appointment or whatever
Correct.
it needs to be,
Correct.
all VA subsidized, and tell them what happened. Tell them what the VA did to you.
Well, I've been transporting people to and from their appointments as far as Lancaster, Santa Barbara, Long Beach, within the areas that people who work for the VA that does transportation, they don't go outside the perimeter, so they only go within 20 miles. My company, we go outside of the perimeter, and those people who haven't been to the doctor within 2 to 3 years and who are critically ill, who have cancer and need organ transplants and such things. So transporting these people within that time frame, I'm getting up at 12 midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, in the wee hours of the morning, just so I can get them to their appointments on time. And did that for a period of time to find out that I wasn't going to get paid.
What happened, just to clarify that a little bit, so this is a net public good. So what Laronda does is she runs a company. It's not a huge company. It's a small company. It's just you and your daughter, I think, at this point.
Yes.
But what they do is, now the size of the company should not have any indication of the importance of it, because the work you guys do is important. You go out there when other people won't, when the regular
Correct.
VA transportation won't. You pick people, you're all hours of the day and night, and you're picking people up who need your assistance, and you're taking them to their medical appointments and mostly medical appointments, what have you.
Yes.
In other words, this is a net public good. Without
Correct.
you doing this job, people suffer.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So, and again, correct me if I'm wrong with all this, but so the VA, you're under contract with the VA, among others, and the VA just keeps telling you you're going to get a contract, but doesn't give you one.
Correct. So,
But yet
yes.
you keep doing the job because
Yes.
these people need you.
Correct.
Okay, that's, I think, a big part of this. I don't know too many people who, if they're not being paid to do their job, well, except me, who, well, I do it for free anyway, but unless they're being paid to do their job, are still going to do their job. Now, you're under different circumstances, I'm just a realtor, but you're under very different circumstances, and I think you should be applauded for doing that. I think what should be happening is, I think your mortgage lender, who's heard this story, I've told them, you've told them, we've told them in writing, your mortgage lender, who's, by the way, is Essex
Yes.
Mortgage, which we'll be talking about more in a minute. Sorry if my voice changed there, I'm not a fan. Should realize that what you're doing is a net public good, and what they should do is if anybody should be getting a break in this scenario, it should be you, because of the circumstances. So in other words, you kept working.
Correct.
You didn't just flake out and disappear. You didn't, I don't know, develop some bad habit or something, run off to Reno. You didn't do anything goofy.
No.
They just stopped paying you.
Correct.
But because the job is important, because people suffer if you don't do it, you kept doing the job.
Correct. And I also, once they had the mayor there, senator, excuse me, correct my statement. It was
One
a
politician
senator.
sort of looks like
Yeah.
another when you're in trouble. Yeah, fair
It
enough.
was a senator there. So, and I thought that it would be a good idea for me to step outside of my company vehicle and to let them know that I'm not being compensated for services rendered. And so, with that being said, I had spoke to a gentleman who oversees the contracts there, and I shared with him that I'm doing this out of my own pocket, and that it's expensive because gas is not cheap.
Fuel costs, vehicle maintenance,
Correct.
time. Yeah,
yes.
of course.
And so, and me going 150 to 200 miles to go and get someone just to take them to the VA so they can be seen because of their illness. And while they were there, they made it seem like they were interested in my conversation. So it was like, oh yeah, we need to talk to her. Oh, let's get her number.
Yeah.
And they put on a big show. They made it seem like they were all for the veterans there. And I told them, I said, my father-in-law, who passed away a few years ago, I told him, I said, this would, gave me the desire and the passion.
He's ready to do it.
I've always had a passion for people. I've always been a people's person to want to care and just nurture, take care of them. That's just my nature. And so
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with that being said, I was always seeing veterans at the VA not having transportation. They didn't know how they were going to get home. They didn't know how they was going to get to the doctor. So that's what, started my interest in wanting to transport the veterans. So with that being said, I spoke to the gentleman that oversees the contracts there for the VA, and I told him, I said, I'm transporting them. I'm going, over and above beyond. I'm coming out of my own pocket. I'm not asking you guys for anything. I said, I just want to collaborate with you guys. He said, we're not interested, and hung up the phone in my face.
That's nice. So,
Yes.
so what you're trying to tell me is that a politician, when there's a crowd of people, said one thing, and when it
Yes,
was actually
correct.
time to do something, didn't do it?
Correct.
Imagine my surprise.
Correct. So,
I mean, I don't mean to cast all politicians. I know, like anything else, I know good ones and I know bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the number of bad ones is an oversimplification. Right now, completely overwhelms the good ones. I know a lot of very good public servants who are killing themselves on a daily basis, and they sure aren't doing it for the money in the cases that I know of. And they're killing themselves trying to sort these problems like yours out. But unfortunately, that is just not the majority. It just isn't. I wish it was, but it just isn't. Most of them are, in my view, not public servants. Most of them are doing it for their own
correct.
Ego, money, whatever, whatever drives them. But
Correct.
it's not trying to serve the public. But I don't want to
Correct.
just talk about politicians. Let's talk about specifically about the mortgage issues, because I want people to hear about this sort of stuff.
Okay.
It is the name of the show, after all, right? So your lender is Essex Mortgage.
Yes, correct.
So what happens? So you can't make the mortgage payment because VA is not paying you, despite the fact you were still doing a rather thankless job. But I'll thank you. So thank you.
Thank you.
For doing this for veterans and others people. I mean, you're helping people who have no other way to do this,
Correct.
and you're stepping in to help them.
Correct.
And they stop paying you, and you're still doing the job. I find that amazing. So you bought a house. You're there for a couple of years, everything's fine. This happens. You're not getting paid. Your expenses are still going up. They keep telling you it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It hasn't happened. So you can't make your mortgage payment.
Correct.
Tell me what happens after that.
Well, not being able to stay afloat, not able to pay the mortgage, utilities, everything that goes with living expenses. So it became overwhelming. And so I didn't know what to do. It was like, oh my God, what do I do?
What happened when you contacted Essex and asked them that question?
I contacted Essex Mortgage multiple times. I had tried to contact them in the early stages to see what can I do to, be in a better position in regards to my mortgage so I don't be where I'm at now. And I was told before they even had a conversation with me that I didn't even qualify. So without even asking me any questions, there was no conversation. I was just asking them, can we do a loss litigation?
Loss mitigation.
Yeah. And so they said, no, you don't qualify. And that was the extent of the conversation, and that was it. So
Got to ask yourself, how could a mortgage company, and Essex is a servicer, they're not the investor. And like most companies we all have to deal with, whether it's your PHHs of the world or Aquanet, they're usually not the investor, they're just the servicer. And that's a very good excuse for them to be able to say the dog ate my homework. But how could you possibly, as Essex Mortgage, whose only job it is to service mortgages,
Yes.
and you are a client of theirs,
yes,
how could they possibly have determined they have no options for you when they never even spoken to you?
exactly.
They have no idea if you were making any money or no money. They had no
That's
idea
right.
what your house was worth. They had no idea what the
Correct.
equity position was. They didn't even know the terms of the loan. They were bothered to look them up. So they did absolutely nothing.
Correct.
Except at the first phone call say, well, sorry, I can't help you.
Correct.
I mean, how is that okay?
It's
I'm
not.
I guess I'm asking the universe that. Obviously, you think
No,
it's not. I think it's
yeah.
not too. I'm sure Jen agrees this is not okay. But I don't think anybody's going to agree that it's okay. But I don't understand how you take something as important as your home.
Correct.
And in your case, you were in this position because you were giving to others, because you were put yourself in a position where promises that were made to you
Correct.
were not being kept by
That's
the VA, and yet
yes.
you kept doing it. I mean, I'm going to
Yes.
keep I know I've said that before. I'm going to say this several more times more through this interview because I think I'm flabbergasted by that. And yet, despite knowing all of that,
Correct.
Essex response was, "Yeah, thanks for calling. We can't help you."
Correct.
So, what were you supposed to do?
I have no idea. I don't know.
I guess Essex plan was just to let you sit there until you got 90 days behind,
and
so
I
they could
think
file
they
or
had
120
a
days
plan.
behind.
Yeah, correct. I think they had a plan. I think their motive was to get me in a position where they knew that I wasn't going to be able, because they saw that, that it was going in the direction that it was going.
the payment
they
history is pretty clear,
the payment, But before then, they can see in regards to how I made my payments. I paid them every time, on time, plus interest.
Yep. I've seen the
So
record.
they knew the history. So just to get an understanding, it's like, it's common sense. If you see somebody's history, they've been paying their mortgage on time every month, and then all of a sudden, then they're not able to pay their mortgage. That's a telltale sign. Something is happening.
Well, a rational company who actually gave a damn about its own clientele would have contacted you and said, "Hey, Laronda, we know you usually make your payment on the first. We notice they're coming in later and later, and now you're starting to get late charges and stuff.
Correct.
What's going on? How can we help you?" That is the job of a servicer.
Correct.
What I just described is not anything extraordinary. What I just described is the job of a mortgage servicer. They're supposed to be the ones. That's why investors hire them. It's not just processing paperwork. They're supposed to be the ones who go, "Wait a minute, your payment history has gone south.
Correct.
Maybe we should reach out to the homeowner. Maybe in this case, we should reach out to Laronda and say, what's going on?"
That's the moral thing to do. Correct.
It's also yes, of course, but even from just a business standpoint, look, even if you ignore the morality of this, which I don't, but obviously the banks do, they would like to keep you paying.
Correct.
They have a very, very large interest in to keep you, me, and everybody else has a mortgage paying.
Correct.
It's how this works.
Correct.
Because no matter how you look at it, no matter what business school you went to, I'm talking about the people at the banks, of course, you are going to make more money continuing to service an asset, because you make money with every payment, than you are by liquidating the asset.
Correct.
So the fact that they went to liquidation, foreclosure, in your case, told you had no options,
Correct.
never gave you any instruction, and
Nope.
nothing.
No.
Never even told you this is the warning that,
Nope.
120 days, we're going to
Nope.
file a notice of default.
Nope.
I mean, these are all things that we know because of the law and because I've certainly have other files with Essex. And by the way, Essex is not a huge company. They've sort of come on the scene really in the last year or two. And we're still learning about them. But yet, even in a very small time, they've racked up quite an impressive history of bad acts. And yours is just yet another of them. Okay, so let's move up a little bit. So Essex, you're paying on time regularly like clockwork.
Yes.
Your payments start to slide. Nobody says anything, does anything. You finally get to that point where you just can't tread water anymore because VA is not paying you, despite the fact you're still incurring the cost for doing the job. And so now you've slipped under. Now you can't make the mortgage payment.
Correct.
So at what point did they actually contact you? How far
They
behind
never
were you?
did.
Okay. So did they finally send a letter in the mail? They send you anything?
They sent me a letter in the mail.
Was the first one they noticed a default, or did they send anything prior to that?
No, it wasn't a notice of default. The first letter that they sent me, it was prior. The only reason why I had, let me tell you when I received a notice of default. When I went up to the lender and I was doing my own research, so I found out that I needed to get a copy of the original promissory note, that they should have that. I just wanted to review it.
Perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. And then I found out that I needed to get a chain of assignment and a verified affidavit. And so
Go ahead.
when I went up there to request these documents from the vice president of the lender,
And let me interrupt for just a second. Laurent, just so you guys understand, this is a very rare thing. Essex has an office that is within driving distance of
correct.
our office and Laronda's house. So unlike most lenders who are kind of nameless and faceless, in this case, you're actually able to go to the company, the brick and mortar company, walk in and say, "Hey, I'd like a copy of these things," which you have a right to do, and they have to give you. Now, they have 30 days to produce, but they have to give you these things.
Correct.
It's per RESPA and TILA and the Homeowner Bill of Rights is where you find these things.
Correct.
So you go in there and you say, "I'd like these things," and
Yes.
they said,
and she said, "Who sent you?" So I said, "No one." I said, "Myself.
I am the homeowner."
Yeah, yes, exactly.
I am
And
the
she
borrower.
said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She said, "We're having issues with our computers. Is there any way I can get your number and I can call you back? Because I don't have that right now." She said, "I can't give it to you at this
So their
moment."
entire computer system for all of their archives happened to be down on the day you showed up.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
What a crazy coincidence. So you
Correct.
give her your number,
Yes.
and then what happens?
And she never called me back.
Imagine my surprise. Imagine my shock and surprise that an employee for Essex Mortgage Servicing glad-handed you, got you out of their building, and then never followed up or did her job in any way, shape, or form.
So then I go,
Shocked to hear that.
And so then I go back a couple of weeks later, and then I, asked for the same lady, And she comes back out and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I've been busy." I said, "I understand." I said, I'm a business owner, so I understand.
Well, are you asking to go out to lunch? You're going on a date with her? I don't care if she's busy. What does that have to do with her? She's in a company.
Yes, exactly.
Get someone else to do it.
Exactly.
You want to work the keyboard? That's nonsense.
Exactly.
Essex employs what? 1,000 people? 10,000 people? Whatever it is. More than one.
Exactly.
Ridiculous.
Yes. So then she said that, let me give you my card and let me give you my email address. And she said, and I'll contact you.
Should have happened the first day,
Yeah,
not 2 weeks later.
correct.
But go ahead.
And she said, I'll contact you. She said, I'll email you once I get these documents in place and I'll give them to you. I said, okay, no worries. So then 3 weeks come, past the 2 weeks mark, and 3 weeks are passed. And then I reached out to her and I requested the documents. I told her, I said, per our conversation, you stated that you would, give me
Provide
the
these documents.
Yeah. And
Otherwise known as the bare minimum.
Yeah, and there was no response.
Imagine my surprise. And again, Essex, I mean, we pick on Essex because they're a lousy company, but they're one of many. There is massive, if you own a bank, listen to what I'm saying. We're going to break in just a second, but listen to what I'm saying here. We'll end on this. If you're in banking, okay, imagine, let's say you're not banks anymore, let's say the restaurants. Every restaurant in the United States sucked and poisoned its diners, and you open the one restaurant that didn't, you'd be very, very wealthy. There is a massive hole in the mortgage market. A decent bank who comes to the fore, who actually gives a damn about its clientele, will make a fortune. Simply customer service. I don't mean anything extraordinary. Just normal customer service should carry the day. And it's not like it's not profitable. Mortgage is the most profitable segment of banking. That's why every major bank has the biggest banks, most profitable banks are the ones who are most into mortgage banking. So I tell you what, I'll calm down a little bit. We'll talk about this back when we go to the break. Listen to the break. Please listen to the advertisers. I appreciate it. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS and 1220, 98.1, your hometown station. Listen to the break, and we're going to hear the rest of Laronda's story. This is where we're going to get into the good part. This is where we get how we fixed it, or are fixing it. Listen to the break. We'll be back. Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. We're going to the third segment of the show here. You've reached The Real Estate Fix with Rich. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. We have in studio today, we're going to wrap up with her. We have Laronda Warner, client of ours who we're currently working on. And before the break, we were talking about kind of how she got into trouble. Without rehashing that too much, she basically hadn't planned on doing volunteer work for the VA. It was supposed to be a job, but you wound up doing volunteer work, and that's what crushed you. And you can listen to the previous segment if you're curious. But anyway, so we're at a point, we're talking, her mortgage loan is with a company that's being serviced by a company called Essex. She's reached out to them repeatedly and asked for help. They've done nothing. She went to them in person and asked for help and asked for documents. They did nothing. She went back again. They did nothing. I think you're beginning to get the general gist of things here. I will also let you know that she has equity in her house, which made her a target for this kind of nonsense, because basically the worse Essex behaves, the more money they wind up making. And that's not the way this is supposed to work. They are supposed to be working for Laronda. They are your servicer. They have a legal and a moral obligation, and I would say an ethical obligation, to help you if you get into trouble. They do not share that. They do not share that point of view. I have other files with Essex. I will tell you for sure they do not share that point of view. And that makes them wrong and us right. So let's jump ahead a little bit. So I think you got a letter in the mail from us. We sent out one of those famous purple letters.
Yes.
We send out letters to people all in the areas that were LA County, Ventura County, Riverside. We send out letters on a weekly basis that are people in trouble of NODs, notices of default, first step in a foreclosure filed against their house. Mm-hmm. So you get the letter from us, then what?
Yes. And I looked at the letter and I said, I think I'll call him and see.
Well, it's purple and it says free all over it, so that's probably helpful.
Yes. And I was like, I told my daughter, I said, I think I'll call him. And when I called you, and I was just appreciative of how you were helpful and your knowledge and your concern. And you had that compassion in you, and it just drew me to you. And it was like, nobody else is trying to help me in the way this gentleman is. I told my daughter, I think I'll let him help me.
Well, thank you. Well, my wife tells me, my wife likes to remind me all the time that sometimes what I think is compassion is after just anger. Because what Essex is doing to you is wrong.
Yes, it is.
It's wrong if you were not in this situation because you continue to volunteer when others did not. Mm-hmm. That it would be wrong anyway.
Yes.
But when you think about, and they don't give a damn, but the rest of us should, you got in this position because the VA didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Correct.
But yet a very vulnerable population still needed your help. So you continue to do what you were charged with doing.
Yes.
So, it's not my job to say who's morally right or wrong in these cases, although I will when it comes to Essex because it's so obvious. But if anybody should be given a break, my goodness, who else does that? And yet Essex attitude was, sort of like the mob, pay us or else.
Yes, correct.
And if you didn't have equity in your house, by the way, they'd be much more eager to work with you. But you had equity, so they figured out, hell, if it goes to foreclosure, we make money.
Correct.
And it's Laronda's problem is kind of their idea, which is ridiculous. So we get her in, we get her into the system. We get an authorization signed, all the stuff we need to get going. We got a financial worksheet for all the stuff we needed. Takes about a week. And then we reached out to Essex and said, what are you guys doing? So, and then what happened?
Well, Essex Mortgage, they still was giving me the runaround. So I kept, calling you and letting you know, hey, nothing is happening. And I wasn't nervous. I'm not going to say I was worried because, and I just have to say this, I'm a religious person. So, I always put God in all my business. So I put him first and foremost. So, and I know he brought you to me. I know he did. You're God sent. I'm just sorry.
I appreciate that, but I have a family that would disagree with you. But thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll take the compliment, but I know a lot of people who disagree. But thank you. A lot of people at Essex would disagree with you. That's for sure.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I don't mind that.
So they still were going against the grain. Essex Mortgage was still going against the grain. It was as if they had a motive to, get me out of the house. So until I talked to you, I didn't receive. I can't. I'm trying to recall. I can't remember.
They didn't respond to much of anything.
Yeah, I think it was after I went to the office and they sent me a notice of default.
Yeah.
I didn't get it right away because I was like, aren't I supposed to?
Well, for those of you listening, the rule is supposed to be this. Your lender is supposed to wait a minimum in California of 120 days, 4 months, before they file a notice of default. Then they have to wait 90 days after that's been filed before they can file a notice of sale. And then 21 days after that, they can conduct the sale. So it's 120 days, 90 days, and 21 days. That's your worst case scenario. And Essex didn't start responding until you were past that 120-day point, and their response was to file a notice of default, despite everything else you told them, despite everything else we had tried to do and are currently doing. So in a case like that, when you get an intractable lender and they're just not listening, we had to prep. We put you in touch with a good bankruptcy attorney, put you in touch with Lou Esmond.
Yes.
Who's our go-to
Amazing.
for that? Yeah, you've had fantastic bankruptcy attorney, especially when it comes to defending a house, preventing a foreclosure with a bankruptcy. He sort of pioneered that. I know a lot of people who do that, but Lou's better than anybody else. He's fantastic. So we always recommend Lou Esmond. But anyway, so you've got a bankruptcy all prepped with Lou.
Correct.
And then finally, something starts to go right.
Yes.
And the VA calls you up and says, okay, we're finally got your contract together. We're finally going to pay you, which should hopefully give you the ability to pay, to bring the loan current, just get out of this mess.
This is a different company that I'm being contracted
Oh,
with.
okay, so it's not the VA. Okay.
No, it's a different company.
Okay.
Yes.
But the point is we bought enough time
Yes.
keeping you out of the foreclosure,
Correct.
so now things are starting to kick in.
Correct.
So we were in a position where you're ready to file the bankruptcy because we had a sale date for yesterday. It was supposed to be your foreclosure sale date originally.
Correct. Yes.
And then what we managed to do is use, and I have to thank Pilar Schiavo for this, she created this, something called AB 2424, which is a new law. It amends a civil code section. What it does is, and I want to get through this quickly, is it says if you're in excess of 5 days before a foreclosure sale date, and we did it at damn near midnight on the sixth
Yes,
day, so
correct.
we snuck it under the wire, to say the least.
Yes.
They have to give you an additional 45 days. They have to push back your deal 45 days. Now, in your case, we did it, not necessarily to sell the house, but we did it because that'll give you the time to get the money in, bring the mortgage current, end of foreclosure.
Correct.
So we used it to buy time. And I think the point there is there are a lot of new laws out there, specifically 2424 and other things that we can use to buy time. Sometimes time is just the commodity you need. Sometimes you need a more direct fix. Everybody's file is different. But in your case, all Essex had to do was back off for a couple of months, and you're back in the black. You're able to pay them back already. You're good to go.
Yes.
They wouldn't even give you the courtesy of that.
Correct.
So if you get into problems like this, give me a call. I'm Rich Szerman. I always do this at the end of the show. 661-714-1400. Call me anytime. I'll be happy.